God for blessing me with this series, and I just pray that it would bless you and that it would stir something in your mind to cause you to realize what it is that you must overcome from a mental perspective to become who God created. When I say what must you overcome, I mean what must you conquer? What is it that you must get victory over in your life from a mental perspective, dealing with your mind, dealing with your thoughts, your thinking, to come into being, to come into the existence and to exhibit the quality of the woman that God created. We all have our own purpose and destiny. God put us all here for a different reason. And so from that perspective, understand that there is a battle. I know many have heard Joyce Meyer talk about the battle of the mind, but I want to talk about the battle, not just for your mind, but there's also a battle for your purpose, for your intention, for being here. Because there's a spiritual being who opposes your purpose. And he opposes your destiny, and his name is Satan. The reason why he opposes your purpose is because he opposed his own purpose. In Ezekiel 28, verses 12 through 19, and even in, I believe it's in Isaiah, there's a story where it tells that Satan was an angel, and his name was Lucifer, and that as an angel, he was given the task, or was created, not just beautifully, his beauty was perfect, but he was created to be the worship leader in heaven. So he was supposed to lead everybody worship to God, but because of his beauty, he began to think more highly of himself than he should have, and he said, I should be praised, that I will exalt myself, and that he wanted to sit on the highest throne. Well, we all know that God sits on the highest throne. And so when you think of it from the perspective that if this spiritual being opposed his own purpose, and which God put him here on earth, why wouldn't he oppose your purpose and your destiny? Because when he opposed his own destiny and wanted to put himself in the place of God, he created sin. That is when sin was created. He was the first one to sin. So it would make sense that if he is sin, that he would desire to lead and to tempt us into temptation. But the very temptation that he himself committed, the very sin that he committed, and that is that we would not be who God created. If we don't know God's reason for creating us, we're not able to live it out. We're not able to live it out. And so we submit to living without reason, without purpose, and without intention. And so then he is able to rob us of our destiny. One story is about myself is that when I was 13 years old, I had a dream that I was in the pulpit. And I was dressed in royal blue. I had on a royal blue skirt suit. And again, I had on a skirt suit. And at that time in my life, I didn't wear skirt suits. My mother dressed me in dresses. And so I understood later that that was a portrait or a vision of myself as an older woman. But what got me was that I was in the pulpit and that I was preaching. And as I was, preaching, I'm lifting people up. And so I did not understand what I was doing in the pulpit. And so I would have this dream repeatedly. And one time when I had the dream again, I actually turned around in the pulpit because I wanted to see if it was a man in the pulpit with me, because then it would make sense to me, because then it would be that the reason why I was in the pulpit was because I was with my husband. So it never dawned on me that God had created me to be a preacher. It was a conflict for me. When I got in the 6th grade, I was on the honor roll, and this teacher, her name was Adridale D. Pannell, and she was from North Carolina, and she was the only teacher that never complained about me talking. But what she did do was she utilized my talking. And so what she did was she had me to give the graduation speech when we had our graduation. And I remember it so vividly. I was so nervous, and I was shaking. And I was shaking to the point of my voice was even shaking. And so I just don't remember it being a good experience for me. I don't remember, I really don't remember what I said because I was so nervous. But what I noticed was there was a battle with my destiny, with my purpose, that when God did call me into ministry, that it was, you called me to speak, but yet when I get up to speak, I'm fearful and I'm nervous, and I would always have to bind the spirit of fear. And so when in 2008, when I moved to Georgia, and I think a year later, I went to Point University. It was based on teamwork. So I learned that practice made perfect. And the more I began to speak, the more I began to practice, I began to get comfortable with speaking. Isaiah 53:1, and some people know the version where it says, "Whose report do you believe?" And I was looking at the Message version, and it says, "Whose message do you believe?" And so I wanted to come to you all today from the perspective of whose message do you believe? Because there are two voices that speak to us, God and Satan, there are two choices that are given to us. And so when we are talking about what it is that we must overcome from a mental perspective in our thinking, we have to also look at whose message do we believe? Because my story is a perfect example of that. Whose message did I believe? And so it came down to the mental perspective of me believing who God said I was. What did I believe about myself? Why was it that I did not believe? And I could tell you several reasons. But why was it that I didn't believe that God would call me to be a preacher? Well, I can tell you one of the examples is that I didn't have a lot of female preachers in my family. And so a lot of times, there's a saying that you become what you behold, what you put your eyes on, and what you're surrounded by. And so that was a part of it for me. Again, whose message do you believe? I ask you today. And so I didn't pursue because I didn't believe that I could measure up to who God showed me that I was going to be. I was talkative. I was nervous about speaking, in large crowds with a mass audience. I was nervous about that. And so the reason why God told me to call this the Mental Aptitude series is because the direction that we go in, that it starts with our mind and in our thinking. What we believe and our aptitude as well is based on the mental part, again, is what we believe, but the aptitude part is the innate ability in us, or it can also be that with the combination of our acquired capacity. So God puts that innate ability in you to do something. He gives you a skill. That's your aptitude. But then there is the part in which you are supposed to develop that skill or that aptitude, and that's when it becomes the acquired capacity to do something. And that's something that you're supposed to do, is what God puts you here on earth to do. That's the reason why you exist. And it then becomes a component of your competency. Oftentimes people criticize based on their strengths. We look at people and they do this so terribly, they're disorganized, the person who doesn't talk a lot, you talk too much. The person who doesn't talk a lot, the person who does talk too much, you don't talk enough. And so we come into a place in where we're always trying to change people instead of embracing who they are and utilizing them or encouraging them to operate and function in the perspective or in the competency level or the level of giftings that God has given them. That is a part of Satan seeking to steal, kill, and destroy. Even when he uses those people to come against us. Because if anybody is against or they are opposing your purpose in life, I believe that they are your enemy. And that if they are trying to oppose you or utilize you in a different capacity, then they are under the influence of Satan himself, because they are discouraging you to be who God created. And so, again, how does Satan do this? Well, he tells us the opposite of what God says. He tries to discourage us. That means he tries to steal our courage. Because if he can steal our courage, like he tried to do to me, then he can stop you from operating just in your mind. He can trip you up just mentally in your mind and stop you from going forward. Okay? And so he also does this by getting us to doubt our potential and our purpose, such as thinking we're not good enough, thinking that we are less than, that we can't measure up. But if God has innately put this in us, we can't mess up. We can't be tripped, because he's already equipped us. It's in us. He hasn't put the same equipment in us that he's put in other people. We all have different personalities. We all behave differently. And even if we have a personality like somebody else, we still don't possess the same strengths as they do. And if we do possess the same strengths that they do, it won't be in the same order, and he may not use it in the same function. Ultimately, he's trying to destroy our belief in God, because our relationship with God through Jesus Christ starts in our belief, with our belief system. And then as we believe, then we confess it or declare what it is that we believe. And again, I'm a witness, because if you are scared and fearful to do what God has told you to do, you will not prepare. And so aptitude, when we talk about the capacity, the acquired capacity, that's you have the innate ability, and then you do something to prepare yourself. If you don't believe, to go in a totally different direction, which can cause you to arrive at a totally different destination that God has intended. But the good part is as long as we are living, we have the opportunity to get it right. That's why a month ago, you heard in the news a woman was 91 or 92 years old, and she got her degree. Something in her said, I'm still living, and it's not too late. And so it's never too late. As long as you have breath in your body, it's never too late for you to be who God created. Oftentimes, even like myself, I worked in the federal government for 13 years and then contracted, I don't know if it was 5 years or, something like that, and then state government in Georgia. But that was something that I did for money. It wasn't a calling for me. God is saying it's not too late. As long as you are here on this earth, it is never too late for you to walk in your purpose. Even here standing today, that is the reason why I was able to press in and to, for God to give me the heart and the desire to have these series, because this is a part of my purpose. This is a part of my destiny, to help people to not just realize, once they realize it, to also strengthen them and to even provide resources to them, that if I don't have the skills to assist them, that God has put me in partnerships with other people. Because again, if you're not gifted in that area, somebody else is. Amen. And in Matthew 8:13, it tells us that what you have believed has happened. And so that, for that reason, you can see that I'm a late bloomer, because I didn't believe. And so what I believed happened. I didn't believe that I measured up. I didn't believe that I was good enough. Didn't believe that I could do and be who God created me to be. So I went on another path. I became what I beheld with my eyes. I pursued that instead of pursuing what God told me, He showed me. But because I was not me, I delayed walking in my purpose. And so that's why believing what God says is paramount to your purpose and to your destiny. And so in order to know what we must overcome mentally, we must evaluate what it is that we believe. And I'm going to pause right there, because I want you to think, what is it that you believe? What is it that has stopped you from doing what He has shown you? If you understand that it's a part of your being, a part of your purpose, a part of your existence, what is stopping you? Is it fear? Is it opposition? Because I already said that that's Satan. If he opposes his own purpose, why wouldn't he oppose yours? What's stopping you? What is keeping you from moving forward? Even to the point of asking yourself, would you rather leave here with regret, or would you rather walk into the obedience and receive the blessings that God has for you for just simply being you? How hard is it? It's easier to be you than it is anybody else.